What have I done? What have I done?
We all have days in our lives that we'll never forget. And for most of us, they're the happiest days of our lives. But for me, the one day in my life that I'll never forget was the last day that I could walk. It was a Saturday night. I was out with my girlfriend, just like I was every Saturday night. And we had a fight, just like we did every Saturday night. And it was my fault, just like it was every Saturday night. And then something different happened. She had had enough. Enough of being treated the way I used to treat people. See, I was this tough, invincible kid. Nothing could touch me. Nothing could hurt me. I thought I had to be that way to be cool. I was wrong. So after my girlfriend left, I got angry. Mostly at myself. And I thought that going out and getting drunk would make things all better. I thought it might wash the pain away somehow. In all my life, I've never been more wrong. Getting drunk that night didn't wash the pain away. It just made the pain so much worse. So I got in the car with another girl, and I convinced her to buy the alcohol for me. I haven't seen her since the night of my wreck. I can only imagine how she must have felt the next day when she heard the news. If I ever see her again, there's one thing I'd like to say. It's not your fault that I'm paralyzed. It's not your fault. You did not do this to me. I did. No one else. But she must still hurt. Can you imagine how you would feel if you provided the alcohol to someone who then got hurt or killed?
Regrets. Remember this day. 17 children burned to death when their school bus was struck by a drunk driver. The drunk driver lived. How about this day? 3 seniors were killed in a car crash the night before their high school graduation. The drunk driver lived. Don't drink and drive.
You might just live to regret it. I drank alcohol for about 45 minutes that night, right up until the time that all of us kids hate, curfew. The time that our parents arbitrarily set for us to be home. My curfew was 11:30. If I were just a few minutes late, I'd get grounded for like a year. So I had it timed exactly right. I'd leave at 11:28 and arrive not a second late or a second early. I remember getting in my truck to drive home that night. I remember locking the doors, cranking the engine, and driving off. And that's the last thing that I remember about that night. I remember opening my eyes and seeing someone coming toward me. And I thought, Mom, Dad, is that you? But it wasn't. You know, I used to hate so much for my mom to come in my room every morning and tell me to get my behind out of bed for school. I used to hate that so much. But that morning, I would have given anything to hear the sound of my mom's voice. Because that morning, I woke up in the surgical intensive care unit of a hospital. And that person coming toward me was a total stranger. A nurse. Well, this nurse had a big needle in her hand, looked like it was about 7 or 8 feet long. And I got scared and I tried to run, but I couldn't move any part of my body. And then I realized I couldn't even feel any part of my body. It was like my body wasn't even there. About that time, a man came in the room, and by this man's cold, uncaring voice, I thought, well, this must be the doctor. And he was. He came over to my bed and he looked down at me and he said, Gavin, you were in a bad wreck because you were drinking and driving. And his next words are words that I'll never, ever forget. He said, I hate to tell you this, but you'll be paralyzed for the rest of your life. You'll never walk again. And all I could think was, oh God, what have I done? What have I done? I needed to know what had happened. I needed to know how I'd done this to myself. I used to think alcohol was so cool until I had to read a police report to find out how I had paralyzed myself. How cool is that? Here's what the police report said. In the 2 minutes it would have taken me to drive home, the alcohol hit me suddenly, and I blacked out. For some reason, I passed up my own house where my parents were still awake, waiting for their child to arrive. Worried sick, unable to sleep until their child was home safe. My dad had this dream of his son playing baseball in the pros. And it was my dream too. I worked hard my entire life. I practiced every day of my life. I made varsity in the 8th grade. I was a starter in the 9th grade. I made all district in the 10th grade. I was about to make all my dreams come true. But one night, and one stupid mistake, and all my dreams, and all my dad's dreams were shattered. My parents gave me life, and all I gave them was a hard time. And all they were trying to do was protect me from this. After I passed my house, I drove to the next town 15 miles away for some reason. There was a lake on the left side of the road and homes on the right side. I came around a curve, I hit a wet spot in the road, and I lost control. I started hydroplaning straight toward the lake. For some reason, about 2 feet before my truck fell into the lake where I would have drowned, the truck turned and started heading toward the other side of the road, straight toward a house. But a tree blocked the path. I slammed into that tree so hard that it threw me headfirst through the glass of the truck window. It threw me through the air and into a telephone pole, where I fell to the ground. Well, the truck hit the tree so hard that it uprooted the tree, and the truck followed me. The truck was finally stopped by that telephone pole that I lay under, but when it was, the front wheel of the truck had run over the back of my neck. It broke my neck and crushed my spinal cord. When the police arrived, they couldn't find me because my body was hidden under the truck. My head was pinned under the front wheel. Finally, about midnight, the whole neighborhood was gathered around, and they finally found me. I want you to imagine that you were there at the scene of my wreck. I want you to imagine that you were one of those grown-ups standing there when they lifted the truck off my body. I want you to imagine what they saw. They saw this child lying on the ground in a pool of blood with a broken neck and a severed spine. Helpless. While you're standing there, looking down on this child, the only thing that goes through your mind, thank God that's not my child. The one time I came home drunk, my dad was at the door waiting for me. And he knew. He said, "Son, I'm not going to talk to you about this tonight because you probably won't remember it tomorrow." He said, "Come by my office Monday after school." So Monday came. And as I was driving to his office, I was thinking of every comeback I could possibly think of for everything he could possibly say to me. And I went into his office all cocky and sat down in front of him. And nothing could have prepared me for what he said. He just looked at me, this ex-Marine lawyer, and said, "Gavin, your mom and I love you very much. And if anything ever happened to you, it would kill us." Well, I didn't have a comeback for that one. He continued, "I'm not going to tell your mom about this because it would break her heart. It would break her heart. I want you to promise me that you'll never do this again." I broke my promise. My mom used to brag about me. How I made good grades in school. How I was a star baseball player who never touched alcohol or drugs or cigarettes. My mom never even knew that I drank. I remember the day she finally found out. It was the day after my wreck. Can you imagine how hard it was for my mom to find out this way? From some doctor who also told her that her son might not live. And even if he did, he'd be paralyzed for the rest of his life. Never keep secrets from the people who love you. you will always end up hurting them. The Sunday after my wreck, they finally let my parents in to see me in intensive care. You know, parents are supposed to see their children smiling and laughing and playing. Not like this. This is how my parents saw me. I was lying on this tilt bed, strapped in to keep me from getting bed sores. My head was shaved and covered with gashes that required 65 stitches from when I flew through the truck window glass. My head was in 35 pounds of traction, which they attached by screwing 4 screws into the sides of my head to attach a halo. My neck was broken. My spine was cut in 2 places, so I couldn't move or feel anything below my neck. I could barely speak, barely breathe, and I was barely alive when I saw my parents. I knew I had hurt them more than anything else in the world ever could. And I knew that I had broken my mom's heart.
What do you dream of?
I was in intensive care for 3 weeks and then transferred to Children's Hospital, 300 miles from home. When I first got there, I thought my life couldn't get any worse. I had this condition called dysreflexia, which is when all the blood in your body rushes straight to your head. Your blood pressure shoots up to 220 over 180, and you have a stroke. I never knew pain like that existed. It felt like I was being hit over the head with a sledgehammer, over and over and over. It happened to me every 8 hours for 3 months. At first I prayed, God, please just let me live through this. And then later I started praying, God, please just let me die. But for some reason, I survived it all. They put me in this big room at Children's Hospital with all these other children. And I soon started to look at someone besides myself. I started to look at all the other children there. I saw children who were kept alive by machines. Children who were so brain damaged that they didn't even know they were even in the world. Children who were terminally ill and went to sleep every night scared to death that that would be the night that they never woke up. I looked around at all these other children going through all this unimaginable pain, and I realized something. I realized that compared to their problems, my problems were nothing. I met this 10-year-old little boy named Shane. One day Shane was playing in his front yard just like he had done every day his entire life. A drunk driver came down his road, speeding, veered off into the front yard where Shane was playing, and ran over Shane. When I met Shane, he couldn't walk or talk. If you were that drunk driver and you had destroyed that little boy's life, could you ever forgive yourself? I'm so thankful that I was the only one hurt in my wreck. I'm so thankful that I didn't hurt or kill anyone else. But I could have. I could have. Can you imagine getting drunk and waking up the next day and being told that you had killed someone? The floors in Children's Hospital had these colored lines so that the little kids could find their way around. One day I was following those colored lines for some reason. And I was passing by all the patient rooms. And I noticed this 3-year-old little girl in one of the rooms. She was in this crib all by herself. So I rolled in her room to see her. And she looked up at me with her big brown eyes. And she smiled real big and she tapped the side of her face for me to blow her a kiss. The little girl's name was Dana. When Dana was 6 months old, her parents found out she had spina bifida, a crippling disease. Her parents immediately rushed her to Children's Hospital, and they dropped her off, and they left. And they never came back. That little girl had lived in that hospital for 2.5 years, all alone with a crippling disease. That little girl really made me appreciate my family. And I thought, if this little girl could be so strong and smile through all she's been with, all she's been through, all the pain she's lived with in her life, if she could smile through it all, then so could I. Doctors told me I'd be paralyzed from my neck down for the rest of my life, that I'd have to be dependent upon other people to take care of me forever. Well, I told them they were wrong. That just made them mad. They said, Gavin, you have a C3 fracture of your spinal cord, and your spine is completely severed at C7. No one recovers from that. Now, you're going to be like this for the rest of your life, and you better accept it. Well, I wasn't about to accept it. I was about to prove them wrong. Within months, I had feeling all over my body, and I had movement all the way down to my waist. I learned to feed myself again, dress myself again, speak again, breathe again, write again, drive again, and live again. I had to learn to do everything all over again, and I did it. I never gave up, and I don't want you to ever give up. If I can overcome all my problems, as tough as they are, then you can overcome yours. I went back to high school, and I graduated with my class with a 3.5 grade point average. I then went to college and graduated with a bachelor's degree. I shattered my dream of being a pro baseball player. But I dreamed another dream, to be a speaker and an actor, making a difference in the world. I'm still paralyzed, but I'm smiling through it. Every one of you has someone out there who looks up to you. Someone who wants to be just like you. It may be your little brother or your little sister, your boyfriend or your girlfriend, your best friend. They're going to do exactly what you do. If you drink, they're going to drink. If you do drugs, they're going to do drugs. If you smoke, they're going to smoke. So how are you going to feel when they do the same thing you do and get hurt or killed? Every day of your life, think about how you would feel if the person you love the most weren't here anymore. They need you. You might be the only person they'll listen to. You might be their only hope. You can change their lives by telling them 2 simple words. I care. You have to have the guts to stand up to them and say, I want you off the alcohol, off the drugs, off the cigarettes, because I care about you, and I will not let you die. Don't wait until it's too late. Don't wait until you have to go to the cemetery every day, looking down at their grave, asking yourself why you did nothing to help them. Help them today, because tomorrow may be too late. When you're older and you're looking back on this time in your life, I want you to be proud of how you treated people. Be a hero. Stand up for those kids who are too weak to stand up for themselves. Always make the right decisions and protect those kids who look up to you. Tell your parents you're sorry for hurting them, and from now on you're going to be a better person. I want you to be strong and smile through all the pain. I want you to have a great life, a happy life. I want you to make all your dreams come true, and you will. Never let anybody tell you that you won't. You will. I want you to make a difference in the world. And always remember those 2 simple words that can change a person's life. I care. And I care.